Hello, I'm Daryl Robert Schoon, with absolutely privileged to be here with Reverend Betty Tatalajski, the founder of Tucson's Temple of Universality. It's a spiritualist church here that's founded on esoteric thought and metaphysics. And I think today's subject, since we are heading into the holiday season, and I do believe that the period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, more souls choose to leave the earth than at any other time. They choose to make transition. And so it appears to be. And so in acknowledgement of that, the subject today is healing.
Yes, and not only because we have been in Scorpio and there are more deaths and more operations and more surgeries, more divorces and moves during Scorpio than any other month, but also because of the lack of hospital care, medical care for a lot of people. And I know Washington, and is all in an uproar, shall we give the people more money, more medical care, or less? I don't know.
I think they're willing to do that as long as it doesn't take any money away from their boms.
Right. That's what I was going to say. As long as we don't take it from the military.
Military, that's right.
I noticed that we insist on that. But anyway, when it trickles down, it doesn't trickle down far, does it? It doesn't trickle down past some of those other things out there, down into education, perhaps. But, we go right back to what Jesus said, physician, heal yourself. And so it really behooves us to listen to those words of wisdom from the great master, heal yourself. And we know, and when he says that, as a man thinks it is, then it really is important to think yourself well. And it's hard to do sometimes, when you have this pain somewhere, or sometimes you're just sick and tired.
Yeah.
You're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but you don't know how to get off of that wheel and tell yourself, my health is perfect. But it's the only thing that'll work. You must change your mind about it. And I just wanted to talk about, I've seen some incredible healers, like we have the healing forces, the healing spirit there at the temple. And you can talk about this great man who has joined the force there, the healing team there at the temple, Bruno Groening. And, for all of you computer devotees, you might want to look him up on the internet, on Google, because he is doing a lot of work around the world, but he has joined the spiritual team there at the temple. Yes, we're so very proud of that.
Yeah. For those of you who are curious about, and I suggest everybody do this. He's an extraordinary person. Very little is known about him here in the United States, but he was born in the early 1900s, and after the World War II in Germany, which you can imagine the state of that country at that time, he became famous, sort of a media star. For he thousands of people would be healed, and as Bruno said, it's not him. He never did it. It was God, but he was able to bring God's healing to thousands of people at a time. And so I would suggest that you Google Bruno Groening, and it's Groening, and to see who this man is. Now, what's absolutely stunning about Bruno is and Tucson. Really, because he said he never came to the United States, but he said that there were two power centers in America. One was in Manhattan, and the second was in Tucson. And lo and behold, I was sitting next to Reverend Betty Tatalajski at one of Hoyt Robinette's spirit card circles. And let me show you what a spirit card is. This is one of Mother Teresa. All right, they're little 3x5 cards. They're blank when they're put into a basket, and a lid is put on these blank index cards with gel pens, colored pens, pencils, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the people in the room sit there for around 45 minutes, and we give the readings are given by Hoyt Robinette, who is one of the few people who are able to do this kind of what we call phenomena. And at the end of 45 minutes, Hoyt opens up this little basket and starts handing out cards like this, all right? That was on one side of Betty's card, all right? On the other side of that card was names. Bob Ireland, you can see there he was a minister at your church here in Tucson.
Who ordained me.
Who ordained Betty. And Poppy, her
Joy guide.
Her joy guide.
Master Elias Elijah, my master teacher. Josephus, the great man who wrote about the Jews in the first century.
This is what happens in these cards, at these card circles. Now, I was sitting next to Betty, all right, and I had only heard of, in fact, I had heard of Bruno Groening only because somebody here in the studio with us had suggested that Martha and I go to this healing circle. And we had never heard of the guy's name before. We went and saw this video. It was moving, and the power was palpable. We could feel it. But otherwise, other than that, okay. We all know, we all see, we all do. 3 weeks later, I'm in a spirit card circle sitting next to her, and we're sitting there, and these cards are being done just like that. And Hoyt Robinette says to me, Bruno said he's going to put his picture on your card. And I mean, that took me aback. And what happened is that was the first of many phenomena. This spiritual healer who said Tucson was a great center for healing started showing up at our trance circles at the temple. And he told Betty, he said, Betty, I mean, this just happened a few months ago. He says, are you going to ordain me? No. All right. And Betty laughed. He says, you came in wearing the mantle.
Right, he did.
And we are so lucky at the temple to have his healing energy. He said his band is there. And this is what happens at the Temple of Universality. Healing, when we see healing, we only see it in its most gross, finite form, the body. Right. But the body is the expression of God's perfection, is the expression of thought form, is the expression through the etheric, through the mental and the spiritual, finally precipitating into the physical. And when true healing, it doesn't happen at the physical, it happens at the higher levels. And this is what we do at the temple.
That's, of course, why Jesus said, as a man thinks it is. It's always the mind. At an international conference I went to in India years ago, Swami Rama, who founded the Honesdale Institute in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, was a guru and teacher, a friend of mine, and we had a film that was done by Alice and Elmer Green from the Menninger Institute. They had come over, they were at the conference, and they had spent time over there actually documenting, filming those miraculous, believe it or not, things that happen in India with such as the man generally who will draw himself in together, close the orifices and go into a little box about this big and stay for 3 weeks or a month, buried about 10 feet underground. Well, they had done a lot of that, seen it, documented it, but the thing that really got me was Swami Rama, the filming. I would love to get another one, and we must get a film of that. Swami Rama, of course, Indian, trained in India, and the purpose for his extensive knowledge and experience was he was told to come to America, and the medical field would be the AMA would be very happy to meet him, and when he explains to them that no illness, zilch, no illness happens to you without outside the mind.
Who told him this? That the AMA would be happy?
Yes. they had not quite right, but that actually why he trained so many years and became the great demonstration that he was. And so in the film, Swami Rama is, and he's not dressed like a Swami, he's just dressed in a casual suit, and he's sitting there.
He's in casual Swami wear.
Yeah, Swami wear.
Okay.
And he's teaching them, he's telling them, you know, that all disease is created by the body. Well, of course, this was truly unbelievable to them, and so they went through the list of, we know it couldn't, this one couldn't be, this one, you know, this one, and he says all disease, no disease, you know, happens outside, it's all in the mind. Now, you know, that's going to cause a lot of controversy out here because a lot of people, you know, it's like myself, you know, I inherited asthma from my mother. My my physician, this one right here, told me when I met him years ago, Dr. Butler, he says, well, it sounds good, Betty, but it's not true. You didn't, you copied it.
This is Dr. Butler.
Yes, this is Dr. Butler.
And he came to you on another spirit card through Hoyt Robinette.
Yes, and this is the spirit card. And when we talk about reincarnation in one of our sessions, I will show it again and explain to you that Dr. Butler was my father in my last life, and we lived in England. And I died about 5-6 years old. I don't know why after all of those. I had 77 incarnations before that. That was a 78th. And they say that's very few, actually. And so he said, I didn't come in just this time just because you were my daughter. He said, I came in because we've been walking the parallel path for eons of time. But anyway...
so you and he spoke to you during this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then he put his picture
on your card.
Yes.
Now, as unbelievable as that seems to most of you out there, it is true, and I want to say that is no more unbelievable than this lady, Reverend Betty Tatalajski, was a Marine. All right, and I know that's true. So she was a Marine, and these things did happen to her. So let's set those disbeliefs aside and proceed with real reality.
Yeah, I don't work in belief or disbelief.
Yes.
I work in knowing.
Yes.
Experience, and experience is the only way you can know. What good is belief or disbelief? You know.
Well, I think in view of what people go through here on this planet, Betty, is that before we find the truth, before we find out what we know, we all are lost in belief and disbelief.
We con ourselves.
And we do. And then
we decide what we want to do, and we con ourselves into believing
it's true. And then because of that, we clump together with other people who have the same beliefs.
Absolutely.
And we feel right.
And righteous.
Yes, righteous.
And then if you don't believe our belief, then, you know, let's go to war and
with
fight
the other
out,
people
okay?
who don't believe like we do. That's it.
So anyway, Swami Rama is here, you know, demonstrating for the doctors and telling them all illness is caused from the mind. And so he's at the Menninger Institute, sitting there with a group of doctors, and they go through the list of, you know, we know that you don't do this yourself, you catch it, you know. And they said, well, now cancer, that attacks you. Yeah, it attacks you because of some, you know, discordant thing in your mind. But anyway, and he says, they said, well, your mind can't create it. You just can't create cancer. And he says, well, let's see if this is true. What does this cancer cell look like? So they hand him on the plate here. They have a cancer cell. And he says, okay, I want two. I want one that is malignant and one is benign. Okay? So they showed them to him, and he looked at his arm, and he grew a cancer cell on his left arm. And then he says, now show me the benign. And he put it on the other arm, okay? So then they took them down to the lab, and he's still sitting there with the doctors, chatting with them, and they've taken this down to the lab, and they come back, and they have them in 2 different envelopes. And he says, well, this one is the malignant one, and showed him on his arm. This one is the benign. And they said, how did you do that? He says, well, I went with you down there, and I saw you switch the envelopes. Because you thought you were going to trick me.
Be cute, yes.
Be cute. And so you switched the envelopes on me. And they said, well, how do you know that? And he says, well, I went with you. The doctors who were sitting around him said, you never left the room. He says, oh, yes, I did. I just left my body here.
So he did more than able to create a cancerous cell and a benign cell. At the same time, he was in bilocation.
He went down
now,
to the lab.
The doctors at Menninger Institute disbelieve all of it.
Have you ever seen this on television?
No.
Have you ever seen it on 60 Minutes or 24 Hours or something where the world could see it? Wouldn't it be lovely if they did? Now, somebody had a copy of it right after I got back from India. There was a small group here sort of that had seen that movie, and they showed it again. I want to get one.
Yeah.
I believe that Swami Rama has made transition into spirit, I believe. But I think we all should be privy to watching that the way that I was. Now, Spirit knew when I saw it, I was going to tell everybody about it. But they should have sent, somebody, Walter Cronkite or somebody here, on television so they could see it. Now, because, I talked about it in the podium and everything, but it didn't get worldwide view, And I just thought it was interesting that the AMA never took this information, this film, or the Menninger Institute, which financed it. I thought that was interesting.
Betty, we were talking about, you said, you don't have belief systems, you just know. Well, I know that to be true. I mean, and your experience has been so replete with these kind of phenomena and experiences that this truth is extant for you. It's obvious. It's you've seen it happen over and over and over again. But everybody else on this planet is wandering around in belief.
They don't want to know.
They don't want to know. They're afraid. And in fact, when when people, that common thing is when you go to a cocktail party, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics. Now, let me tell you why. Both religion and politics are belief systems. All right?
Right.
And when people's identity is tied up in that belief system. So when you start questioning a belief system that somebody's identity is tied into, they take it personally.
Of course.
Because their sense of personal self is tied up either in being a Democrat, Republican, Tea Party, atheist, communist, ideologue, socialist, capitalist, or whatever. And so This is really the problem. And so when the Menninger Institute, their self-concept is tied up in being doctors, being people who are the high priest of healing in this society.
Wouldn't you think, though, that they would want to know that the mind is doing this?
No. No, Betty. No. And see, and that's exactly what happened to Bruno Groening. He came, all right?
Right.
He came, thousands of people got healed. And
Thousands.
And what happened is the medical establishment brought charges against him for healing without a license.
Right.
So then he said, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to talk about healing. And then people would come and get healed. And they said, you're still doing it.
Yeah.
You're still doing it because people are coming to you to hear your talk, but they really want to get healed. And finally, they gave him a suspended sentence for healing. I mean, this is, and a bishop at the time said, This is like what if Jesus came
Right.
and healed people.
Let's stone him.
Well, they'd get
Let's stone him. Crucify him.
I think the FDA would get him. The health people would get him for that. And then it just occurred to me that the alcohol, tobacco, and drug people would get him for turning the water into wine. There would be innumerable violations of state and civil code if Jesus were here today.
That's true.
You know, and the truth is, Betty, you were meant to be there. Because part of your soul wanted to see this, and you were waiting. And what I am one of the most thankful people on the planet, because Martha and I know you, and what other people might take to be crazy, and what I probably once knew to be crazy, I'm just fascinated. These are. I mean, I have seen these cards, you know, like this, happen at the trance circles. I have my own set. All right, I have seen phenomena. I've been told things. Martha, she was 10 years ago. She was at the hospital in Phoenix near death. All right, and they couldn't explain what happened to her. She had complete liver and kidney failure. They put her on, and they pulled her out of it. And they said, "We have no idea why your wife got sick. We have no idea how she got better, but it was renal kidney failure, hepatic failure." And so they put her on the fast track, and they were going to give her a liver and a kidney, which is so hard to get on that list. And
you'd rather keep your own anyway.
Yes. And she said, I think mine are working. And they were doing her a favor in their minds by and she opted out, and her liver, all her functions are right. And she says she knows it was a healing. She said she could feel in the middle of the night when people were praying for her.
Right.
And she had to take responsibility too for it.
Prayer is very important.
Prayer is very important. But
pray yourself well.
But she heard those words, and it said when she went into the hospital, she heard those words: "If you worry, you're going to die."
That's right. You get what you worry about.
And so the mind is critical, and she stopped worrying. And I can assure you, when she was in the intensive care at Good Samaritan Hospital, she had every reason to be worried.
Absolutely.
If you told people the state she was in, people go, "Oh, that poor girl, I'm worried for her."
But that's why I tell my friends, I don't care how sick I am, don't say I worry for you. You say pray and say thank God she's perfect.
Well, yes.
Thank God she's perfect. Because two people agree with something, you could die.
Yes.
You know, I'm worried sick, and all of a sudden I'm really worried about you. Two people are worried about I'm going to die. Well, chances are I
You're going to die. That's right.
And you want to agree with someone, hey, your health is perfect. You know, knowing all the time that this person is so sick, and the body is sick, but the spirit cannot be ill. And the spirit is in charge of this, you know.
And that's really the critical piece.
That's
it. The spirit is in charge, but we're that little, we got our finger on the toggle switch.
The ego is back here. Oh my God, look what's happened to your body.
Mind, yes, exactly. And the ego lives by fear. The ego lives by uncertainty.
That's what its job is, to keep you out of heaven.
Yes. Well, you know what?
To keep you out, keep you worried and misinformed that you are only physical, that you are a physical body.
Betty, one of the models of the ego that I relate to is the ego is your chauffeur. and for your whole life, you've just sat in the back of the chauffeurs taking you around and gone to where it wanted to go. And you did nothing. You just sat there and you thought, oh, this stuff is happening to me.
Oh, I'm not responsible.
Awesome. Because the ego takes you around to where, and it doesn't want, and your chauffeur doesn't want you to know it's your car.
Right.
You're the one, and he works for you. All right? And you're really, and as soon as you get the ego clear, then he'll go, okay, and he'll put on his chauffeur's cap and start driving around like he's supposed to. But as long as you don't make that move, as long as you don't take control, that ego has got his cap on the seat beside him, and he's waving at people like he owns the limousine.
And when you make transition, you're going to be real sorry
that you didn't know it before.
Sat back in the back and went through this lifetime letting doctors and other people make your choices for you.
11 o'clock, Temple of Universality, every Sunday at the corner of Vincent Country Club.
I don't believe that was 25 minutes.